So what's going on guys, Kids here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today I will show you the best crit and stun build in Black Myth Wukong. So our build's primary objective is to stun and crowd control enemies, while doing very high critical damage. This setup will focus on spells like the immobilization and burst, via the spirit and transformation spells and talents. The more chapters you complete, the harder the bosses and enemies will get, so this build will not only do great damage while leveling, but it is going to make your boss fights much easier. If this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So let's move over to the best spells, and we will mainly use the immobilization and cloud step. Immobilization controls the boss, allowing for free damage. You can use immobilization spell at the start of the encounter to get a good damage burn on the target. Stagnation and crash talents from the mysticism immobilization tree are your best way to increase the duration and damage while stunned. What I usually do is control the boss and save mana for an emergency stun after the cooldown is refreshed. And then the cloud step spell is useful for the mobility aspect of creating distance away from the boss. Bosses like the Red Lung, for example, have devastating melee attacks, and that's why you will likely need to use stamina for dodging and a carefully timed cloud step to create maximum distance. So by using combination of dodge, cloud step and sprinting to avoid damage and attacks will be the best way for us to stay alive. Next up we have the transformation, and the best one to use in the early to mid game is the Riot Tides, because this will deal significant burn damage to the enemies. The damage over time slashing attacks are helpful when you need to deal damage in quick successions and evade attacks, and you can unlock the Red Tide after defeating the Guanzi in chapter 1. Then as far as stances go, for this build I recommend to use the Smash or Pillar stance. The best damage combination to use is 2 consecutive light attacks, followed by a heavy attack and then reevaluating the boss position and signs of the counter attack. The most important talent to unlock for Smash stance is the Force Compound, so you can charge the heavy attack while sprinting. This will allow you to charge in or flee while preparing for the burst damage. And then the second stance you should use is the Pillar stance, which has some of the best defensive capabilities. Since early game bosses are entirely ground based, so you can use the Perch heavy attack and keep yourself in the air to avoid damage. If you struggle with incoming damage, you can as well swap to the Pillar stance and play defensive. I recommend to take the Steel Pillar skill to reduce the stamina cost while perched, and then the Towering Mountain to slam down the heavy attack damage after perching. Next up, let's take a look at the best skills and talents for our build. So the best talents are Stagnation, Force Inbound, and Steel Pillar. Stagnation increases the duration of the Immobilize spell when light attacking the target, which gives us free damage. Then Force Inbound allows us to charge heavy attacks while sprinting. And Steel Pillar will help you to stay above the boss when you are perched in a pillar stance. Here are my top 5 best skills and talents. So first of all we have the Stagnation and the Mysticism Immobilize. So hitting an immobilized enemy with the light attacks extends the duration. This is very helpful to keep doing free damage to the boss. Then for the second one we have the Force Inbound in the Staff Stance Smash. This will give us mobility while maintaining force. Then for the third one we have the Steel Pillar in the Staff Stance Pillar. This reduces the cost for maintaining balance, which is helpful to extend duration while we are above the boss. Then we have the Bait in Alteration Cloud Step. This decoy deals shock damage, which is useful if you use Cloud Step to create distance. And finally we have the Simenian Agility in Foundation Stamina. This lowers stamina cost of dodging, which is helpful to maintain our defenses. Next up we have the Curios, and for this build, the best Curios is good Spike Plate and a Jade Jar, because you can increase the defense and survive attacks. The Gold Spike Plate perk increases defensives considerably and deals damage to surrounding enemies upon taking a hit, while the Jade Jars perk will moderately increase our defenses. So this is a good second option as well. Then we have the Spirit, and the best spirit for fighting bosses is the Wandering Bite, because it does massive damage in front of the target, but make sure that you use this when you really need more burst damage against the enemy. Then for one of the last parts of our build we have the Relic. The main relic that I recommend is the Craving Eyes, with the Opportune Watcher passive, because this will give us increased focus with light attacks. Therefore you want to use the Immobilize spell to stun the boss and generate focus with the opportune Watcher passive. Then next up we have the gear and items that we should use, and I recommend to start with the Rat Sage Staff, which will give us 66 attack. This item is craftable after defeating the final boss of chapter 2, the Yellow Wind Sage. Then for armor we want to get the bronze armor set, and this will include the bronze monkey mask, the bronze brocade battle robe, the bronze arm guards, and the bronze buskins. All of these items are craftable after the chapter 2. The 2-piece bonus for this set will deal additional damage to the enemies upon crashing their immobilization. Moreover, the 4-piece bonus will dramatically reduce the cooldowns of the immobilize spell. This is a great set to use, considering that most enemies are vulnerable to the immobilization, and it can be locked in a place easily. And finally, for the vessel, we want to get the Fireproof Mantle. This item can be acquired in chapter 1 after exploring the ancient Guojin temple. It provides increased burn resistance for its passive effect, and it can be activated to gain immunity from the burns. And now last but not the least, we have come to the gameplay part. Every boss fight will be different, but I will try to summarize the overall experience. So, the best way to beat enemies in Black Myth Wukong is by avoiding melee attacks, which we can do by using the Cloud Step or Pillar Stance, while also immobilizing the target with the Immobilize spell. Some bosses like the Red Long, for example, will always begin the battle with a jumping lunge attack, so dodging it can be a tricky, but if you press dodge button just before dragon reaches you, then you should trigger a perfect dodge. While it's not essential, using perfect dodge along with the Cloud Step counterattack can easily stagger the enemy, which will give you a few valuable seconds to deal free damage. But if you are unsure about your dodging in this game, then you can simply move around the boss and only attack when you see a clear opening. The best way to handle most fights is by using the various combos unlocked through the Staff Stance's talent tree. The most effective combo is the double light attack, followed by a short delay and then a heavy attack. You can chain this combo into another heavy attack if you have enough focus points. This combo will easily stagger most enemies, which will give you more opportunities to deal damage. And finally, I recommend to try out to aim for most boss heads or their containers, specifically for the Red Long boss, which are on its back to maximize your damage. The containers for the Red Long boss especially are vulnerable, and breaking them with a varied combo can deal a lot of electrical damage to the boss, while also knocking it off its balance. And this is exactly what you need to keep in mind. Every time, no matter how big or small the enemy is, he has specific mechanics and weak spots. So by discovering and exploiting them, you will dramatically lower the difficulty of the fight and increase your overall damage. And that's about it. So with that said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or suggestions, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and not miss any more amazing content. With that said, you have an amazing day and I will see you in the next one. So take it easy. Peace.